joining us right now to talk a little bit of Celtics, it is Jeff Goodman, frequent visitor to this program, and he joins us on the Harbor One hotline. Hey, Jeff.
What's up, guys? How are you?
How you doing?
Still, I think, getting over the shock of 2 nights ago,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah, same. Talk me down here. I can't fathom that the plan is going to be to run it back with this big three and Joe Mazzula, but it sounds like that is what the plan is going to be. Is that what you're hearing?
Well, I just think it's going to be hard to, I don't think they're going to cut ties with Joe Mazzula for a couple different reasons. One, you look at the what he stepped into, as Jason Tatum said in the post game, he basically got the job a day before media day. Took him to a game away from the NBA Finals. He was put in a tough situation. His staff around him wasn't complete to begin with, and then they took Damon Stoudemire away from him. Well, Georgia Tech did, hiring him, a month or so ago. So, listen, I think Mazzula probably deserves another shot here, number one. Plus, he's owed, 10, 12, 13 million, whatever it is. I don't think ownership's going to fork that over as well and hire a new coach. That's going to be costly. If you get rid of Mazzula, you're going to hire probably a big boy coach, one of these guys out there that's going to cost a lot of money. I just don't see Wick Grosbeck doing that.
Jeff,
Yep. Go ahead.
When you say that Mazzula was put into a bad situation, I understand that it was quick, but they started the season off not bad, and then they kind of fell off near the end. So how do you explain that? Did he lose the locker room halfway through?
Well, I think, when you're doing well, I think with Brad Stevens, it was a little bit like that too, right? He comes out of the gates as a college coach. He does well early with a team that really wasn't expected to. He completely overachieved. So you gain so much respect that way within the locker room. And then when kind of adversity hits, which it did, then it's like, okay, people start to question, not no matter who it is, because obviously Popovich, Spo, some of those guys have built up so much equity. But, I think a little bit of when things are going well, it's like, all right, we believe in Joe. And then the playoffs is a different animal as well, completely different game in some senses. So, again, I think he deserves another shot. Was he ready for it? No, he wasn't. He was in the second row last year. It probably wasn't fair to do to Joe Mazzula this year. Does he need to change some things? Yeah. Another one on the court, obviously there's some things that I'm sure he learned. And then off the court, you got to be a little bit better with the media. No doubt. Like everybody's killing him in the media right now. I know Joe Mazzula. I know he's got it in him. He's got a personality. He just doesn't show it with the media.
Jeff, I guess my question would be, would Wick Grosbeck and Brad Stevens today give him this same contract they gave him at the All-Star break? In other words, did they make a mistake in removing the interim tag when they did, and now they're stuck with $12 to $13 million on a guy they may not believe in long term?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think they made a poor business decision. When you look at it, you say to yourself, what mattered this year? The regular season didn't mean a whole hell of a lot, let's be honest. All that mattered was how far this team went in the playoffs. Again, if they had been swept by Miami, I think then it would be a little bit different story, right? He came back. Obviously, they were embarrassed in Game 7 here, but they at least made it a series. They fought back, and a lot of that you could say is, all right, they fought for Joe Mazzula. They fought for themselves, let's be honest. You're not playing for a coach. You're playing for yourself there and pride. But, I think, again, if they had to do it all over, they might have. But what do you do right now? If you had let that run out, are you going to let him go? If you can get Monty Williams or somebody like that, you probably are. You probably are, depending on, again, the price tag.
But, Jeff, on the same point, and I agree with what you said, the fact is that if this job is open, I don't think Nick Nurse signs, I think it's the best job in basketball.
It's the Celtics.
So you have this feel that you obviously last year I'm not going to give Wick or Brad a hard time about Mazzula in the absolute debacle they were placed in the middle of. But now you would have, whether it was Mazzula or
whoever you want,
and you'd have this is a Ferrari. It just needs someone that's going to keep it on the road.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And the other part to that is who doesn't want to work with Brad Stevens as a GM? Like, he's super easy to work with. Let's face it. I mean, again, as long as kind of, and I think this is part of the reason that Brad probably liked Mazzula was their philosophies fall in line, right? I mean, they both obviously are all in and shooting threes. Brad was probably a little bit more defensive-minded than Joe was. That was the big thing this year to me is, again, we could talk about everything, but Malcolm Brogdon said it best after the game. I mean, they just got away from defending, and the year before when Brogdon played against them, that was the Celtics calling card, and it became offense this year. And the bottom line is when you're not making shots, you're still able to win games if you're a great defensive team, and they couldn't do that.
When it comes to Jaylen Brown, your guess is that he remains here?
My guess, I don't love it, but my guess, yeah. I mean, listen, you guys know I've been saying this on this show for 3 years, and nothing changed to me. When you watch Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, it still looks like those guys they're playing together for the first time. There's no synergy between. They never really play off one another. Now Tatum's gotten so much better as a passer, which I knew he could become. I mean, that first time I ever saw him, sophomore year of high school, you could see he had that ability to be a great passer. And really, if you watch how his game has evolved, everybody was ripping on him a couple of years ago for a couple different things, right? Number one was he was taking horrible threes, contested threes, not trusting his teammates. Number two, he didn't love contact. Now he loves contact. He'll get to the line, 15 times. And number two, he trusts his teammates. He makes good decisions. His game has evolved. Jaylen Brown's not evolved that much. Still has difficulty dribbling in the half court and still does not pass it well. So to me, I've said it for 3 years, Brad Beal. I know Brad Beal's going to turn 30. I know he's been hurt the last couple of years. I get it. It's a little bit tougher, but 5 years, 290 for Jaylen is insane to me. Like, absolutely insanity.
How much of a say do you think Tatum has when it comes to Wick's decision moving forward, when it comes to the coach, whether to keep Mazzula, whether to go with somebody else? Do you think that he calls Tatum and has that discussion? Do you think the final say is in his hands?
Well, I think he could veto it. Yes, I think it could be. Yes, you're gonna certainly consult with your best player. Now the question is, again, with Mazzula, Tatum was all in. And he defended him after the game the other night. I don't know if you guys heard, but he clearly defended him and is still a Mazzula guy. The question is, are you consulting Tatum and Jaylen and some of these other guys? Because then it gets tough, right? Then it gets tough to find everybody on the same page. And I just feel like these days that's the way it is, right? I mean, they consulted Giannis on the coaching move. You're going to do that with most of these stars because ultimately if the stars don't like the coach, they're not going to stick around.
Answer this one, too, because it comes up a lot when Wiggy's here. Is this team in a different spot right now with Ime Udoka as the head coach?
Maybe. I mean, maybe. Obviously, the one thing Ime did, to me, forget about the on-court stuff. Forget about the X's and O's. I just think Ime, they had a level of, I don't know if it was fear, but a different level of respect for Ime because he could really hold them accountable. And he did it. I mean, he flipped this whole thing, guys. He flipped it. When he took over, we forget what a mess it was, how hard it was to watch this team consistently. He flipped this thing and got them to where they were title contenders. So, yeah, I think from that standpoint, more of the culture, more of the defensive mentality and the toughness, I think, yeah, Ime would have helped there.
Didn't help with the general workplace culture, but
no, very, very true, very true.
No,
is there?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Just another bad one-liner from Greg.
It's actually what happened, but yeah, go ahead.
Just kidding. Anyway, Jeff, was there any part of the reason that they gave the extension to Mazzula when they did because there was still a part of the locker room that was waiting on Ime? In other words, was that done to basically slam the door shut on anybody thinking that Ime was potentially returning?
I'm not sure it was done for that reason. I think it was just done because they felt like he had earned it. They felt like he had done enough and they had seen enough of him, to again think that he was the right guy for the job. And at that point, he was. At that point, you looked at it and you were like, all right, look at what they've done in the regular season. Robert Williams was hurt, and they played great without him to start the year, and everything was kind of moving along. But again, I just felt like, why? Some of these owners make such poor business decisions for guys who have made so much money in their lives, right? Like, who you're bidding against for Joe Mazzula. Why not let it go till the end of the year? There's nothing that's going to happen between February and the end of the year that Joe Mazzula, this is his dream job. He's not leaving for anything else. He grew up in New England.
Yeah, and the only thing that made sense to me at the time was that Tatum wanted it, or the players wanted it. But clearly, in the aftermath of the coach being officially named for Mazzula with the extension, they played like dog crap. So it wasn't even like it galvanized the team.
No, and again, I think that's one thing that is a little bit different. The personality of Joe compared to Ime.
Jeff, before you go, as the basketball analyst at Stadium, any chance the Heat can win this?
I don't think so. I mean, I'd be shocked. I would be shocked, but give them credit. I mean, listen, some of these guys in this team, you guys know I cover college a ton, and some of these guys on this team I had never really heard of, like Gabe Vincent. He was like the fourth leading scorer at Santa Barbara his senior year. I knew Caleb Martin well, him and Cody, and his story's remarkable. I was talking to him about it after Game 7 the other night. Like, you go NC State, transferred to Nevada. Nobody really pays attention to you at Nevada. Your brother gets drafted. You don't. You get cut. And here you are. I mean, he was the best player in that series. I don't know how Jimmy Butler won MVP honors. Caleb Martin deserved it. He was the best player. But Spoelstra's, listen, I look back at a tweet of mine from years and years ago on Spoelstra questioning Eric Spoelstra as a coach year one. And I wasn't alone. So it just shows you, again, I'm not saying Missoula is going to be Spo. All right, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is it's hard to evaluate some of these coaches in the NBA early on in their careers.
Jeff Goodman, as always, thanks for taking the time, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, guys.